Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, it was a Friday game, but we're recording on a Sunday. We're keeping our normal schedule. USC takes care of business back in the Coliseum, a 38-17 win over Northwestern. Wondering how you're feeling about this one, Cody, 48 hours after the win.
Yeah, that was a great win for this USC football team. I was very proud of the way that they handled this short week and the way that they prepared in these 6 days to be ready to go because they played two games in 6 days, two conference games at that in 6 days. And you never know how a team's going to respond when they have to face that type of situation because of one, you just played an emotionally and physically draining game at Lincoln, Nebraska against that type of team and that atmosphere and all of that. And then you have to get on the plane, fly halfway across the country, land in LA. And as soon as your feet touch the ground, you're right into Northwestern prep. That's tough to do because when you go through a season, you get your schedule down, you start getting comfortable, you get in a rhythm. Monday, I do this, Tuesday, I do that, Wednesday, I do this. But when you have to prepare for a short week and play two games in 6 days, everything changes. You have to be perfect with your preparation, you have to be perfect with your recovery. The way that you study film, the way that you do your walkthroughs, your practice on the field, everything changes. So it's tough. Sometimes you see teams that they can't prepare like that, and they struggle in these type of games. And then you see the other thing where teams come out and they dominate in these football games, and that's exactly what USC did. On the offensive side of the ball, they were firing on all cylinders, got their playmakers back involved. Maiava got back on track. On defense, had a little bit of a slow start, and they struggled those first couple of drives. But after that, Danton Lynn and his staff and the players on defense got everything figured out and dominated the football game the rest of the night. Those were two tough conference opponents. USC came out and won both of those games. They controlled what they can control, and that's how you play. You can't control the schedule. You can't control who you play, but you can control how you prepare and how you play. And I was very proud of this football team. The Trojans have put themselves in a great position right now. I know a couple things need to happen in the Big Ten, and I'm focused on USC, but I've been peeking around. Some crazy things are happening. Iowa, Oregon, that game was great. We got two really tough opponents coming up. But if USC continues to just take it one game at a time, put themselves where they want to be at the end of the season, and continue to focus on what they control, I think they're going to look up at the end of the year and be right in the middle of everything and right where they want to be, and still have all these goals that they set out to accomplish early on, still be right in front of them at the end of the season.
Alrighty, Cody, excited to dive into it further. Before we do, just a couple reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch the video version of the show on the USC Athletics YouTube channel. And you can visit our socials, Victory Pod USC. That's where you can ask questions and also just look at our content. We appreciate any and all follows we get there. But let's jump into it, Cody. Talking about USC's offensive performance. We always talk about the quarterback play first. And I'm glad we are this week, especially because we were all curious, how was Maiava going to respond after the performance we saw at Nebraska? What did you see from the quarterback?
Yeah, that was a great bounce back performance by Maiava. And you mentioned it, Keely. That was the one thing that I was really focused on in this football game was how was he going to respond after having one of the worst performances that he's had as a starting quarterback the week prior against Nebraska. And he absolutely delivered. He was in command of the offense all game long. He was spreading the ball around. He was going through progression. He made a lot of great decisions throughout the night. A couple that he would like to have back. And he had a couple throws here and there that he put the ball in harm's way. One of them ended up being an interception. He made a heck of a play afterwards, and we'll talk about that in a second. But for the most part, did a good job of protecting the football throughout the majority of this game. His accuracy, too, was back on track. That's a big thing that I've been critical of Maiava on this entire season was his accuracy, his footwork, timing up with his arm and being in rhythm and having a great base. Looked a lot better in this football game. 73% completion percentage. We can win a lot of games with that. And that really started on the opening drive. He did a good job starting early, 9 of 11, 67 yards and a touchdown on that first drive. I love the fact that Lincoln Riley had confidence in him to start this game. That tells you how much Lincoln Riley as a coach and as a play caller believes in number 14, just like the rest of the team does. But when your quarterback has a bad performance, how do you help him get over that? You come out the next game and you put the ball in their hands, and Maiava delivered. And that was against a good Northwestern defense, too. That wasn't like this was a defense that gave up a lot of yards through the air. They had not had a 200-yard passer against them all season long. They were 13th in the country in passing defense. McGargle, like we talked about, is a very good play caller on defense. But I love the fact that Maiava bounced back so quickly. That's what the good quarterbacks do. If you play this position long enough, you're going to come out, you're going to have bad games, whether you're Tom Brady or you're a middle schooler on the weekend, playing football on a Saturday with your friends. It's going to happen. You're going to have some off nights. You're going to miss some throws. It's going to compound in some of those bad games. It's tough to get over that. But what do the good ones do? They don't let those things continue to linger from week to week. You get over it, you put it behind you, and you come out and play like Maiava did on Friday night. But you could tell that he put that game behind him. He prepared great all week long, and he went out there and delivered for this football team. One other thing I will say, though, I wish he would have continued to use his legs a little bit more. He did a good job on the first drive, had his zone read play where he took off and ran and read the defensive end. And then he had another play on the second touchdown of the game on that second drive to where the play broke down and then no one was open. He scrambled, lowered his shoulder, and finished in the end zone. But overall, I was very proud of how 14 played. And real quick, speaking of Lincoln Riley, too, he did a great job in this game with his play calling. I got to give him credit in the run game and the pass game, using multiple different looks, different formations, different personnel groupings. It was tough for McGarrigle, the defensive coordinator for Northwestern, to figure out what USC was doing all game long. That's why there were so many explosive plays. And not only was it in the first half, it was in the second half as well. They played a complete game. USC had 3 meaningful drives in the second half. 23 plays, 215 yards, and 17 points combined, not counting that last drive to run the clock out. So overall, Lincoln Riley, Jaden Maiava, it starts at the top, and those two guys delivered in this football game for their team.
We alluded to it, Cody, and I want to take a deep dive about this, especially because you are a quarterback, so you can put us in the mind of Maiava. But that interception turned forced fumble. Jaden Maiava is now the only quarterback in FBS to have a forced fumble. Take us through that play. What did you see to cause that interception, and then have the tackling ability that Maiava had?
Yeah, it's tough for me to put all the blame on Jade Maiava on that play. That was just a heck of a defensive effort by the nose tackle for Northwestern. Najee Story was the kid's name. Now, in that play specifically, what happened was they brought a double pressure look on the defensive side of the ball. That meant the offensive line for USC had to block down. You always block inside out. When you have those interior pressure looks, you're going to leave an extra rusher on the outside free if we don't have enough to block them. That way, your quarterback can see that, and now he can react accordingly. When they had the free rusher come off the outside, Maiava knew, okay, I'm going to beat him with the throw. I'm going to get the ball out quick. I had sort of an exaggerated hot route to Makai Lemon. He was running a little underneath route, tried to get it to him quickly, and then Story fell underneath it. Now, I don't know exactly if Story was supposed to do that, if he was supposed to engage for a couple steps and then fall back underneath that play, or he realized that he wasn't getting home with the pass rush and just became a football player and understood the situation, fell back naturally into coverage and was just in the right place at the right time. Either way, that's going to happen. I'm not going to put too much of the blame on Jaden Maiava. I don't even think he saw him, or else he wouldn't have thrown that. But I'm okay with you making that mistake. I'm okay with the interception. Those things are going to happen. What I was really focused on is what happened after the interception. There's two types of things, or two ways that quarterbacks handle an interception in real time. One is where they put their head down and they pout and they start walking towards the sideline. They expect someone else to make the play. They're frustrated at themselves and they kind of give up. Or the other thing they do is exactly what Jaden Maiava does, is you put the team first and you go out there and make a play for your guys. And that's exactly what he did. And in my opinion, Keely, you could argue that that was the play of the game, and that set the tone for the rest of the night, potentially even the play of the season, because at that point, Northwestern was on a roll. We were going back and forth. Momentum was shifting both ways. It was 14-14 at the time. That would have put Northwestern up by 6, and they would have kicked the extra point, could have been up by 7, and USC would have been in a hole. But instead, Maiava hits Story before he crosses the goal line, fumbles the ball out of the end zone, and USC has a chance to redeem themselves, and that's exactly what they did. They went 3 plays after that, went down and finished in the end zone, and from that moment on, USC outscored Northwestern 24-3. Those plays right there, although it's a small thing, I promise you they matter when it comes to winning and losing games. You know, when coaches at the end of the year or at the end of the game or at the end of the season, whatever it may be, say, oh, we were a couple plays away. 1 or 2 plays that would have went our way. It could have changed everything. That's exactly what they're talking about. That's the effort that I love to see from Jade Maiava. I know Lincoln Riley mentioned after the game, part of him was just like, hey, let him score. That's a 320-pound plus player. That's a defensive tackle. I want you to save your shoulder, don't get hurt. But the other part of him knew the type of competitor that Jaden Maiava is, and that is a team first guy. And that was huge. That was great to see. Again, maybe he did it on purpose just so he could show off a little bit of that physicality he has and go make a tackle on the football. But either way, that was great to see. That's going to be a play, I promise you, Maiava is probably going to remember more so this season than any other touchdown pass he has.
I'm also glad that that play happened, Cody, because for the more casual football fan or even Trojan fan, it was a real microcosm of Jaden Maiava, his lack of ego, his team first personality. Like, it really just put that all on display. We've seen him be like the team's number one cheerleader for anyone else who's doing something well throughout the season. So it's just cool to see that he got his moment in that sense. And yes, you hope it's not going after a defensive tackle where he is going to possibly hurt himself. I was glad nothing happened in that sense, but still a great moment for him to show the type of guy that he is.
Yeah, that's a great point, Keely. I'm glad you said that because not a lot of guys at the quarterback position, both in college and in the NFL, are willing to go make that type of play and put their body on the line for their team. I'm so happy that we have 14 leading this group, and it makes you feel really good about USC's quarterback position going forward. With that being said, though, I do got to clarify one thing. I got to apologize to Najee Story. He's actually 270 on the depth chart where he's listed, not 320 like I just mentioned, but 320 sounded a little bit better, so we're just going to roll with that one instead for future reference. But Najee Story, that was a great play. Just Jade Maiava happened to go make a play on the football and really help this football team. But I had to clarify that. But either way, it was the play of the night for USC, and it was really cool to see.
Well, powered by Maiava's throws, it felt like we saw Lemon and Lane kind of return to the duo that we've seen earlier in the season. What did you see from the passing attack in that sense?
Yeah, it was great to see both of those guys get back on track. I'm going to start with Makai Lemon, though. The last two games, he really hasn't been that much of a factor for USC on the offensive side of the ball. He had 4 for 75 against Notre Dame, but was fairly quiet in South Bend, at least to his standards. And then against Nebraska, same thing. Really didn't have any big plays that game, didn't have a lot of targets. I know Maiava was off, so that hurt a little bit. And that 3-3-5 defense that the Cornhuskers run, it's tough to throw the football against them. But at the end of the day, you still got to find ways to get six the football. And they did just that in this game. 11 catches for 161 yards, one receiving touchdown. He also had a rushing touchdown on that play call by Lincoln Riley where Maiava reversed out like he was pitching the ball to the running back. And then Makai Lemon caught it on somewhat of a glorified reverse. And then he walked into the end zone. That was great too to see by Lincoln Riley going into his bag of tricks again. But either way, this is something that has to be a priority going forward. Your number one receiver has to be your number one receiver. I don't care what the other team does. Now, don't force them the football in double and triple coverage, but there's going to be times where the defense has to play one on one. They're going to have a guy on an island against Makai Lemon. When you have those opportunities, you have to get him the football. Also, Lincoln Riley has to continue to find new ways as a play caller, like he did in this game, to get Makai Lemon some of those one on one opportunities. Down the stretch, it's great to have a number two. It's great to have these young guys step up. It's great to see Walker Lyons, Lake McCree, Tanuk Hines, Jaden Richardson make some plays. But when the game's on the line, if I'm Jaden Maiava, I'm finding number six, and I'm also looking for number eight. That's what I did when I was here with Nelson Aguilar and Marquise Lee and Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't care what you're doing on defense. Nelson is going to get his 10 targets this game. We're going to find ways to get him the football. That has to continue to happen because of how well that Makai Lemon can create separation and make those tough catches. You got to have him more involved in offense. And then the other guy, Jacoby Lane, it was great to just see him be in rhythm again. It felt like he was just so comfortable in that game. He was making tough catches. He was, falling down, making some of those comebacks on that drive before halftime. He made that one hander, another highlight reel touchdown catch for number eight. I don't know how many he has now. We're gonna have to put a collage together at the end of his career of
It's
all these one
insane.
circus catches. It's just unbelievable. Some guys go their entire career hoping they can just make one of those type of plays. He makes them almost every other week. It's unbelievable. Both of those guys are going to be absolute studs at the next level, but we're not going to go there yet. We're going to keep them here in Cardinal and Gold for right now. We're going to use them to the best of our ability, and that's finding ways, like I mentioned, to get them the football. Jacoby had 7 for 74, had a touchdown in this game as well. I love that USC is getting back to that 1A, 1B type of option with Lemon and Lane. We got to continue to do that, and I promise you going forward, Iowa, Oregon, UCLA, even the postseason, they're going to focus on those guys. But if I'm Lincoln Riley, if I'm Jaden Maiava, I'm spending extra hours each week finding ways to get 6 and 8 open and getting them the football.
Given that over the last 2 weeks, USC played the number 2 passing defense and the number 13 passing defense, but we kind of saw differences. And of course, June's accuracy factors into that. But did you see anything different between those two games as to why Lemon and Lane were more productive?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that it was two different defensive schemes. Obviously, Nebraska running that 3-3-5 defense. It's tough to throw the football against them. And then Northwestern took the approach to where they're going to play majority of the game in two high, or at least start in two high, play cover two, have their safeties deep, force you to take down underneath routes because it is a 4-2-5, meaning four defensive linemen, two linebackers, five DBs. They have one less cover guy as opposed to what Nebraska did a couple weeks ago. But when you have that, you can attack the middle of the field with those two high looks. And that's what we were seeing in this game was Makai Lemon having some of those crosser routes over the middle or attacking over the linebacker, under the safety, over the middle of the field, getting Walker Lyons, Lake McCree involved early. That forced Northwestern to now rotate into some of those one high looks. And then that's where the comebacks on the outside to Jacoby Lane happen, finding some of those throws towards the sideline. We just did a good job of playing off of what Northwestern was doing and then forcing them to adjust to us. So I was really happy with the play calling. I was really happy with what Lincoln Riley was doing all night long, mixing everything up. Another factor in that was running the football well. That
Yeah.
absolutely helps when it comes to attacking a two high defense. That forces them to play a little bit more one high. And then the other thing too, like you mentioned, was Jade Maiava. It's up to the quarterback to be accurate. There are plays to be made against Nebraska. We had some plays and some opportunities down the field. Not a lot, but we had a couple, and Maiava was missing them. In this game, he was hitting some of those, and that helped them get into a rhythm. So it's a little bit of everything, but either way, we're going to continue to see defenses try different things week in and week out to stop number 6 and number 8. We just still have to find ways to get them the football.
Well, you mentioned the run game. Once again, we saw the King Miller show. He was averaging 8.5 yards per carry. What do you see from him and USC's offensive line?
Yeah, another huge performance from King Miller and that USC offensive line. I just can't say enough about how important those guys have been for this USC football team. Look, I know that you're going to say Jaden Maiava and Jacoby Lane and Makai Lemon and some of the receivers on the outside, and those guys are so important to this offense. Sure, and you're 100% correct. But to me, right now, the MVP or the MVPs of this football team are King Miller and whoever's at offensive line on a week to week basis. I can't wait at the end of the year to look back and see how many different combinations of offensive line units we've had throughout the year and still being able to produce at the high level that they are right now. It's unbelievable. It really is. I mean, to lose Wayman Jordan and Eli Sanders in the same game, to lose Elijah Page, your all everything left tackle, to lose your starting center week 5, to have to rotate multiple different guys up front, to guys that have to play out of position, to have Tobias playing guard on one side and then tackle on the other, and Tawanu going from left to right to left at the tackle spot, to having Kalon Miller having to come in and fill in for Alani Noah, and then John Ray Reed playing the way he is, and now obviously King or Killian O'Connor coming back in. Just so many different things have happened this year. And on top of all of that, you're leaning on a redshirt freshman that is a walk on to be your number one running back right now with a young group behind him. And the fact that they're playing at the level they are right now, it's just, I can't put into context enough how impressive that is, because there's not a lot of teams that can handle that type of adversity on the offensive side of the ball and still produce at the level that they are right now. USC is number 2 in total offense in the entire country, and they're playing really with their hands tied behind their back for what they've had to do up front with the offensive line, with the running back unit, all the different things they have. But it's so great to see, because that tells me that Coach Jones Jr., USC's running back coach, that Coach Hansen, USC's offensive line coach, that Coach Lincoln Riley, that the leaders in that room are totally bought in to the standard is the standard, and that it doesn't matter who's in there, and that next man up mentality, because that is so impressive to see. And Friday night was another example of that. King Miller running all over the field, the offensive line working up to the second level, powerful with their combo blocks, doing a great job of being athletes when you make them get in space and having to block linebackers or DBs one on one. It's just very impressive right now. I can sit here and read you all the numbers and it'd be impressive, and talk about yards per carry and yards per game and the average that King Miller has and all the different things with the offensive line. But what I really love about that group is what's between the years. The way that they play this football game week to week with the offensive line room and the running back room is very impressive. I just really want to give them their flowers right now. Look, I know the quarterbacks, we get all the love. We also get all the hate. So it's a win lose type of situation. But Jacoby Lane, the one-handed catches are great. Makai Lemon, the 150 receiving yards and the multiple touchdowns and the Bolitnikoff conversations, those are all great and those are important. But really, the MVP of this football team is King Miller, and whatever 5 guys or 8 or 9, whatever many guys or however many guys are up front for this offensive line room, those are the guys right now that have really been carrying this offense. And I promise you, Jaden Maiava and the rest of the guys would probably say the same thing.
It's funny, Cody, because we did, if you remember, over under in our preseason episodes, and my intern Andrew, who put together all the math, had many options for me to pick from, and one of them was offensive line combinations, and he obviously meant starters, rotation, stuff like that. And if we had done that, we you and I both would have lost, because it's been every single week. And I maybe I jinxed it in my mind, but I was thinking towards the end of the game, like, hey, this might be the first time we see USC starters at offensive line go through a full game. And then unfortunately Reed goes down with an injury. Coach Riley did not give us an update on that, so we will update you as soon as we know. I'm sure it'll be on Tuesday when we get injury updates from Coach there. But to see Killian O'Connor come back after the first time since the Illinois game. It's just name after name steps up every week, and it's just incredible, like you said, Cody.
Yeah, and you know what, Keely? I've seen teams, and I've been on rosters before where you lose one guy up front on the offensive line and everything falls apart, both in pass protection and the run game. I've been on teams where you lose one running back and the production just plummets and it goes way down. But USC has done a great job of recruiting, of developing guys, of Lincoln Riley too, with his play calling, his play design, the way that he mixes up the run game and obviously getting the pass game going. It takes some of the pressure off of those guys, but really it's a collective effort. Everybody has to be on the same page. It's so important, from the players, from the coaching staff. When you have adversity like this, when you have injuries happen, it's going to happen to everybody throughout the year. It happens with every team, but not everybody can respond the way that USC has done so far this year when it comes running the football. And look, I know this is an air raid offense, but I promise you, if you make them one dimensional and they can't be balanced, you're not going to see the same type of production. That's how important this run game is for USC right now. And the guys that are stepping up are playing at a really high level. And it's really cool to see. So I wanted to make sure I maybe put that a little bit more into context, how impressive, that offensive line and this running back room has been for USC with all the injuries they've had.
Now, I want to turn our attention to USC's defensive performance next, but before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. What you expect from an SUV is a range of sizes to fit your lifestyle. Expectations matter, but exceeding them matters more. The Audi family of SUVs, progress you can feel. And at Ralph's, you get high quality and low prices, so you never have to compromise your budget. Save on thousands of items throughout the store. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Alrighty, Cody, when looking at this defensive performance, I thought after the first two drives, USC's defense really settled in, and we saw some adjustments from defensive coordinator Danton Lynn.
Yeah, it was a great job by Danton Lynn and this USC defense making those in-game adjustments after those first two series. Northwestern came out and had 150 yards of total offense and 2 touchdowns on those opening true drives. But after that, they only had 114 yards of total offense and 3 points the rest of the game. That is great to see. That's a great confidence builder too going forward. There's going to be times on the defensive side of the ball where the offense is going to win, and they may start fast. And those first 15 plays that you have as an offense that you work on, especially for 2 weeks, like Northwestern had when you have a bye, you can come out and execute at a high level. But once the game settles in, that's where you have to start playing your best. And that's exactly what USC did on the defensive side of the ball. And I'll say this, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for them, but it's a lot easier for an offense to go into a short week and just have some carryover. These are the runs that work well. These are some of the pass plays that work well. We can run them against any coverage because we have answers all over the field. We can use some of the same plays that we used all year and apply it to this game plan. On the defensive side of the ball, it's a lot different because you have to adjust accordingly to what the opposing offense is doing. I can't run the same defense or at least the same adjustments and the same coverages against Michigan, against Nebraska, against Notre Dame as I can against Northwestern. Each week is different. When you're playing defense, you are adjusting or reacting to what the offense is doing. So that's tougher on them on a short week to have to put together a game plan. So I understand the slow start a little bit on the defensive side of the ball, but what's important is they got it corrected and they really played dominant for the last 2.5, almost 3 quarters of that football game.
In that sense, Cody, I know we break it down basically front seven and secondary. Let's start with the front seven. You highlighted or put a red dot on Kamalafe. How did USC adjust to him throughout the game?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I was a little concerned early in this game for USC's front seven. Some of the same issues that they had been struggling with the last couple of weeks were showing up in those first two series. They were getting moved off to their spots. They didn't have great gap integrity. They weren't as physical as I know they can be. I thought the linebackers could have been a little bit better coming downhill and tackling Kamalafe. They were giving him too much room to work with. And then when guys had opportunities to make the play, they weren't tackling in space well. Just things that I was concerned about if they kept going throughout the rest of this game. It was going to be a long night for USC on the defensive side of the ball. But the beauty of it is they got it figured out. They made those adjustments. Guys started playing at a higher level. That's what you want to see from your defense. They did a good job of being more physical. They really suffocated the line of scrimmage after that. Guys were playing downhill. The linebackers were playing tight. Danton Lynn was using some more of those heavy packages, forcing Preston Stone to start trying to throw the football around. Kamalafe couldn't get anything going really in the second half. Had a couple plays here and there. It's not ever going to be perfect, but that's exactly what you want to see when you make those in-game adjustments is guys realize, all right, this is the plan for Northwestern tonight. We're going to react accordingly, and then we're going to go execute on the field. We did a good job of getting to the quarterback. There's still plays to be made in the backfield, in my opinion. I think this pass rush is better than what the stats are showing right now. But we had 2 sacks on the night. Jide Abasiri had one. Jakeem Stewart had another sack. But with all that being said, as good as this team played or as good as this defense played after those first two series, especially in the second half, there's still more there. These guys really need to lock in these next 2 weeks. You just played two physical opponents in Northwestern and Nebraska, even going back to Notre Dame. Those are teams that like to run the football. They like to be physical, but you're about to play a really good offense coming up next week, too, against Iowa that leans heavily on the run game. They haven't been as dominant as we've seen in the past, but they've been really good at running the football when you give them space. I guarantee you they're going into the game plan this week saying this is how we're going to attack this front seven. If we have a series or two where we struggle early on, we have to do the same thing though and make sure we get it corrected. But how they played in the second half, in my opinion, has to be the standard. There can be no more. All right, let's get comfortable into this game, give up some big plays, and figure it out. We have to start fast and we have to be able to start attacking and playing physical and playing downhill from the very first whistle. And that's exactly what I know this defense can do. And I expect Danton Lynn to use that, like I mentioned, second half and some of those good examples in this game and tell those guys this is how we need to be for all four quarters.
Now, looking at the secondary, Cody, what do you see from that unit on the whole?
Yeah, I was happy with their performance on Friday. Northwestern quarterback Preston Stone, he had a couple big plays through the air, but for the most part, USC shut down Northwestern's passing attack. Stone was 20 for 30, only 150 yards passing in this game. And then Griffin Wilde, the guy that we talked about, their go-to receiver, he had 24 more catches than any other guy on that roster. He had one touchdown on their opening drive. Other than that, he only had 3 catches for 19 yards. I've been really impressed with this secondary for USC with those guys in the back end the last couple of weeks. And I know Notre Dame's a run heavy team, or they were run heavy in that game. I know Nebraska lost their quarterback, so they had to lean on the run a lot more in that game. So it took some of the pressure off of the secondary. But when these guys have been tested, when they've been trying to pick on them, when they've been trying to make some plays on the outside, they have been stepping up and they've been getting better and better all year. Carlos Nicholson is playing some really good football right now. He's a bright spot on this defense. Marcellus Williams has been playing better and better each week. I really like this kid. I think he has a bright future for USC on the defensive side of the ball. I know he's got thrown in there and had to kind of learn on the fly, and we're watching him figure it out in real time, but that's only going to make him better in the future. I think the sky's the limit for him. He has a really high ceiling. If he can continue to develop under Coach Reed, under Coach Belk, I think he can be a really good player for USC for years to come. And then Braylon Conley had to come in and play some snaps in this game because Marcellus Williams went out with an injury. He had a couple nice plays, gave up that big reception down the sideline, fell down, push off, whatever you want to call it. I think it was just a good play by the receiver. But either way, he got thrown into the tough spot, and I thought he handled it well and made some plays for the defense all night long. And then on the back end, Kamari Ramsey at that safety spot. In my opinion, he is the most important player on this defense going forward, mainly because of his versatility. You can play him at safety, you can play him at nickel linebacker. He plays deep on the back end. He'll play down in the box. He can cover. He can tackle. He can do all these things. He led the team with six tackles on Friday night. He has to be perfect for USC in these last 3 games and then ultimately into the postseason. But he's been playing some good football. Bishop Fitzgerald was a steal in the transfer portal. He's been a ball hawk this season, has been a takeaway machine. I really like what I've seen from him all season long. I love him too as a pass rusher. I love that Danton Lynn doesn't just use Kamari Ramsey down by the line of scrimmage. He also lets Bishop Fitzgerald play tight to the line of scrimmage, brings him on some of those pressure looks. He's had a couple sacks this year. And then Christian Pierce, another guy back at that safety spot, been physical. We've heard so much in training camp and spring ball about how physical he plays the game. Now we're getting to see it on the field, which is awesome. So I really like this unit overall, Keely. I give a lot of credit to Doug Belk and Trevon Reed. They've done a good job of developing the young guys, allowing this group to go out there and play at a high level, and they just continue to get better week in and week out.
Well, you mentioned the young guys, Cody, and I feel like, you talked about glossing over some of the injuries on the offensive side. I feel like a little bit we've glossed over the fact that you have a first year starter at safety in Christian Pierce and a first year starter in Marcellus Williams. How much does that impact what we're seeing in that regard?
Yeah, I relate it a little bit back to last year with the defensive line when we had some injuries up front. Guys had to come out, and then we saw Jade Abasiri and Devin Tompkins and Cameron Crawford. All of them get their opportunity. They got thrown out there maybe earlier than you had anticipated, but it helped them learn. And now we're seeing them make some big time plays this year. That's the same thing with Christian Pierce and Marcellus Williams. Those guys had to compete this offseason. They're getting their opportunity. They haven't played a ton of football at the college level before this, but we're watching them in real time develop. They're only going to be better for it. You can mimic some of those game type scenarios at practice, but nothing is like the real thing. Until you're under those bright lights going up against a different opponent, it's tough to try to simulate the same thing at practice. So there's going to be some growing pains. They've given up some big plays. They've had some mistakes this year, but overall, I think it's going to help them finish this year strong. And then going into the offseason and next year, they're going to be a lot better players for it.
On that note, Cody, any other thoughts on USC's defensive performance?
Yeah, I had one final note. I just got to give them credit. I thought they did a really good job on third down in this game. I love the play calling from Danton Lynn. He was throwing so many different looks at Preston Stone. Northwestern was 4 of 12 on third down. That's how you get off the field. That's how you play winning defense. Really good job overall. Again, First two series weren't great, but after that, they got it figured out and they shut down Northwestern for the majority of this game. Carry that on over now, going up against Iowa, against Oregon, and then ultimately going up against UCLA for the victory bell. But we have to have great defense if we want to be where we want to be at the end of the year. That second half against Northwestern, flashes of what we've seen so far this year against Michigan, against some other teams, that has to be the standard going forward. We have to play great defense all four quarters.
Well, you mentioned it, Cody, and it still kind of blows my mind. Only 3 more games left in the regular season for USC. Any other thoughts before we wrap this one up? It's going to be a crazy couple games coming up.
Yeah, look, we got a big one next week. It was great to see this team come out and handle business. 2 games in the last 6 days, 2 conference games in the last 6 days, 1 away, 1 at home. That is not easy to do, but the Trojans handle business. They're 7-2. Everything that they want to accomplish is still in front of them. Need some things to happen in the Big Ten, but when it comes to the playoffs, if we can finish 10-2 and run the table these last 3 games, USC is going to be in a great position to have an opportunity in the postseason. But either way, it doesn't matter. Take it one game at a time. That next game is against the Iowa Hawkeyes this week. I can't wait to preview that episode too, so stay tuned. That's going to be coming out later this week. USC football back in the Coliseum. Fight on. Let's go take care of business again this week.
Alrighty, you heard the man. We will be back with an Iowa preview, so stay tuned for that. But that's going to wrap it up for our recap episode. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.